thing rolling as quickly as possible. When we say 6 o'clock, we want to mean 6 o'clock. So anyway, I'm your state senator, and I am the Democratic Policy Chair in Harrisburg. The Republican Policy Chair is Dave Argel, doing an interview outside. He'll be in shortly. And Senator Fulmer is a key proponent of property tax elimination, and he will be here shortly as well. So I wanted to thank my colleagues, because they're coming from across the state to actually be here in the 18th Senatorial District to hear your concerns. And we will open this up for public comment later after some presentations were given. I joined my colleagues here for this discussion because it's the #1 issue I face whenever I go anywhere in the senatorial district. This is what I hear about: do something about my property taxes. And it's not going to happen without a strong, elaborate, bipartisan approach. And you just can't put a bill out there. It's got to be workable. And maybe 76, and we'll talk about it, needs to be tweaked a little bit. It's probably going to be based on the conversation that we have today. How we fund our public schools is clearly not an easy issue. We have to fund them strongly and solidly, because education is so important. Our kids are the most important asset and value that we have in our community. We know that. But how do we pay for our educational system? How do we make it more fair? And that's the discussion that I want to have today. And I'll listen to you, but you're also going to hear some other presentations. I did a couple newsletters, and I think some of you, if you live in the 18th Senatorial District, you probably have received my newsletters. And on there, I did put survey questions. And when I asked about shifting from property tax to sales income, 70% of the public said this change needs to happen. So that shows you how important this issue is. And it's not easy. In Harrisburg, we did a formula change that would really help in our areas like in the Lehigh Valley with a formula change, because the way we fund our schools is inequitable on which districts get what type of money. So we dealt with that, but then we only used new money in the funding formula instead of all of the educational dollars in Harrisburg. That's got to change. And this whole hearing is just about building momentum. I started in 2002, called a special session of the legislature under Schweiker to deal with property taxes. And again, we want a special session because this topic is so important. There's also other bills out there that would freeze property taxes for seniors and redirect table game money, because only slot money goes toward property tax relief and the homestead exemption. I would like to see all the table game money and every casino dollar go toward property tax relief, because that's what when we passed gaming, that's what we told the people it was going to be used for. And so this whole conversation is just going to be a dialogue. You'll hear some presentations, a dialogue back and forth. I'm going to have Senator Argel, the Republican Policy Chair, make some comments. Then I'm going to go through just a list of some bills that are out there in Harrisburg dealing with property taxes. And then you're going to hear a presentation on exactly what 76 does. And then we'll go from there. Senator Argel.
Thank you, Senator. Thanks to you and your staff for pulling this together. This is the 4th in the series of bipartisan public hearings looking for a way to find a better way to fund the public schools than the crazy way that we do it today. We started up in the Poconos a few months ago. We were down in rural Lancaster County after that. Then we were up in Upper Darby Township, right up against the city of Philadelphia. And just this week, Senator Don White has asked us to go out to Indiana County. They're in the midst of a very nasty reassessment battle out in Indiana County. And so he tells me, and I know that Lisa has told me the same thing about her district, it's easily the #1 issue that we hear about. I can't get a flat tire fixed or go to a Cub Scout meeting in Berks County or Schuylkill County without someone talking to me about this terrible issue. We've come close in the past. We came as close as 24 to 24 just last session. Since then, we believe we've picked up some votes here. We've lost a couple of votes over there. It's a little bit like herding cats, but as Lisa has indicated, there's other options that we're looking at, including a referendum question this fall, which I believe, if it passes and changes 5 critical words in the Constitution, I think it gets us a lot closer to passing some version of Senate Bill 76 and eliminating school property taxes. I know in my district, they'll say, well, what's taking you so damn long? You might have the same question here. The answer is we came close before. We didn't quite get there, but at the risk of offending my mother, the old English teacher, we ain't given up. So thanks again, Lisa, for pulling this all together.
Okay, so let's go, because I know that a lot of people have a lot to say. Let's go on some of the bills that are out there. Are you ready? Okay. So there's House Bill 1285. That's the referendum that you're going to see on the November ballot if you go out and vote, and I hope everybody in this room goes out and votes in November. There's a ballot question, and basically, in our Constitution, we say when we tax property, we can't differentiate how we tax from the businesses and your personal homes. And that's where 76, the bill to eliminate property taxes, got in some trouble, because a lot of people that were against it, 76, said that we were giving a windfall to the business community. So part of that solution is to change the Constitution to allow us to tax businesses and homeowners differently. So that the business community isn't getting that windfall if we switch to a different type of tax. That's how important that referendum is. So that's House Bill 1285. You'll be able to vote on that. Then there's House Bill 641. Now that creates a senior citizen property tax freeze program. You have to be 65 and older and earn less than $60,000 annually, and also live within your home for 5 years. Senate Bill 101, that's what I talked about, taking all the gaming money, pumping it into property tax relief, and then the senior property tax freeze, I also initiated that. I made it simple, annual income of $65,000 and 65 years of age, and have to live in your home 5 years. Then there's 406, that's Senator Rafferty's bill. He requires at least 2/3 majority of the school board to approve tax increases instead of just a simple majority. Then there's House Bill 1429. That allows the Local Tax Enabling Act by adding a new chapter that allows school boards to enact a variety of different local taxes to replace the property tax. So it's more lets the school district decide how they want to replace property taxes with other local taxes. And then finally, there's Senator Williams. He wants to tax commercial property differently in the city of Philadelphia. So, and part of the problem that we have with 76 is when we talk about sales tax, going towards sales tax and personal income tax, most people don't know that in Philadelphia, their tax rate is already 2% higher. And in Pittsburgh, their sales tax is 1% higher. So every time we try to increase the sales tax statewide, we always hear from Philadelphia and Pittsburgh saying, we can't do it, ours is too high anyway, even though they decided to put that extra 2% on. And I remember looking at that mayor at the time, I go, when we let you pay, and this is what they're doing with their sales taxes, they're allowing that to go to their school system to help pay for their schools. And I'm pointing out to Philadelphia, that's kind of what we want. We want a different way of funding our school system, and we want some sales taxes to go toward that. And they refuse to vote for 76. Even though they're getting some of the benefits, and they don't want to vote for it because their sales tax would be a little bit higher. And then Pittsburgh always weighs in too. So those are the bills that are out there. Senator Fromm should be here. So I did the bill. Okay. And then I'm going to leave it up to Ron. He's an expert on 76. He'll answer any question. You got to listen to this presentation.
Are you going to change? Okay, folks, thank you very much for coming out. Again, my name is Ron Bolts, and I'm here to talk about specifically Senate Bill 76, the school property tax elimination bill. So we're going to start off talking about what are a little bit about education finance reform and what are the real problems that we currently have. It might be easier if I just change with the mouse. Okay, thank you. So the current property tax system, what are the real problems? Well, first of all, it's an antiquated taxation system not based on accepted taxation principles, and simply stated, we no longer earn our living or money from our homes as they did back when we were an agrarian society. Most people did, as they were mostly farmers. Not based on accepted taxation principles simply means that the property tax is in no way, shape, or form based on your ability to pay. If we took the school property tax bill of everybody in here and reflected it as a percentage of your income, you would find that everybody in this room pays a different rate, and those rates vary greatly. The property tax is also very regressive, and by regressive what I mean is if you take that percentage of income that we just calculated, and generally what we find is middle class and lower income earners generally pay a much higher rate on average than do wealthier homeowners. So that's what we mean by regressive, not based on your ability to pay, and very regressive. Property taxes are also inherently arbitrary and unfair. I'm sure you all understand that. Even within one school district, we can have equal value homes with big differences in their assessed value. And of course, across the state, we could have a home in, say, Monroe County that has a $12,000 school property tax bill on a $200,000 home, while a $200,000 home in, say, Elk County might only have a $1,200 school property tax bill. Of course, the inability to pay property tax bills equals the loss of your home. You either have to sell it or they're going to sheriff sale. This is the biggest problem of all. Around 10,000 people a year in the state of Pennsylvania lose their homes to the sheriff sale. Not foreclosures, but sheriff sales. It's very important to understand this issue. Inability to pay property tax bills equals the loss of home. I just mentioned that. Out of control spending. We have out of control spending at both the local school district level in many cases and also in Harrisburg, as Harrisburg does in fact pass down unfunded mandates that your school, meaning you, the taxpayers, do have to fund. The pension is the biggest that we're currently dealing with, but there are others as well. Lack of effective education cost controls. Currently we have none. This legislature enacted Act 1 back in 2006, but it also granted the school districts exemptions to go and skirt the referendum, if you're familiar with the voter referendum. So realistically, today we have no effective cost controls. Every year, a lot of school districts apply to raise taxes above the index, and I have yet to hear of a single school district being denied. Education and taxation inequities. As Senator Boscola mentioned earlier, we currently have inequities in both. The taxation I just discussed, but the education side as well. We currently have districts that spend, say, $25,000 or more per student per year, and we also have other districts that spend less than $10,000 per student per year. And the projected cost of education. I'm not sure if I know how to change the slide. There we go. This is a chart taken from the Independent Fiscal Review of SB 76, and this is one of the most important things I'm going to show you tonight, if you can see the chart. This is a chart showing the cumulative growth in property taxes, average weekly wage increases, and CPI, inflation over time. And if you see that black line at the top, that is your school property tax increases across the state from the time period of 1993 to 2013, and that represents a 146% increase. The line right below that, the green line, is green for a good reason. That is your wage growth. That's average weekly wage. That's your raises that you're seeing in your paychecks. During that same time, that is about 80%, and the bottom dotted red line, that is CPI or inflation. So we have property taxes outpacing wage growth by almost 2 to 1 and significantly more than 2 to 1 for CPI. $1.5 billion. Here's another table take that the IFO issued, I believe, in April 6th, right there, of this year. This is a report that they put out saying that if we do not change course, if we stay with the property tax system status quo, they are predicting annual increases in property taxes statewide of $1.5 billion per year if we don't change course. So simply stated, that black line that I just showed you in the previous chart, that's going to continue doing what it's doing, going up. So what are the real problems? The short answer is this: we have an irreparably broken K-12 public education finance system, and one of the common myths that we always hear, the most common, is that property tax relief or reform is the solution, and we're saying it's not the solution. We want elimination. So what's wrong with property tax relief? Well, on the screen you'll see a number of past attempts to give us some property tax relief. Some of these were left up to school boards to decide to shift to local taxes. Others were left up to the voters. Overwhelmingly, both the school boards and the voters rejected it because they realized, the voters especially, that if we do not eliminate the school property tax, it will just continue to go up. Whatever relief you might have gotten will be sucked up with ever-increasing property tax increases, plus now you're going to have additional taxes to pay on top. HB 1189 was another bill that was an attempt to shift to businesses locally. One of the biggest problems with that is many school districts would not be able to take advantage. They don't have a business base to really significantly shift to. Act 1 rebates, the casino revenue. I don't think I have to probably elaborate on that. That certainly was not what was promised. The Wolf Plan and the Sailor Plan, when Governor Wolf came into office, he put forward a plan that would have raised income and sales taxes for property tax relief and other things. The problem is that on the low end, the lowest school district would have only gotten a 15% reduction. So it really wouldn't have amounted to much anyway. It was just another reduction plan. So relief revenue is quickly outstripped by relentlessly rising school property taxes, and that's the problem with the current system. And any property tax relief plan is doomed to failure if the system is not completely reconstructed. So why is now the time for change? Well, rising homeowner discontent, looking around at this packed room, standing room only, I probably don't have to elaborate on that. Act 50, Act 72, Act 1 failures, especially the relief from gambling revenues, again, does not live up to its promise. It really is insignificant in the grand scheme of things. Pressure from taxpayer groups and the media. I'm one member of one of those taxpayer groups. We have over 80 statewide that support this measure. And the most important thing is the last item there, diminishing opportunity to fund property tax replacement from a state level source. Let me give you a little bit of background here. Back in 2004, Sam Rohr introduced a property tax elimination bill, and it would have only needed to expand the sales tax to include more items and services, and it could have actually lowered the sales tax from 6 to 4.25%, and we could have eliminated school property taxes that way. Now fast forward, of course the legislature didn't do it, and fast forward today, now we need a mix of, we have to increase the sales tax, increase the income tax, and expand the sales tax to eliminate the school property tax. So the point is, if we keep going without getting something done, we're going to get to a point where this is going to become more and more difficult as we go on. Why else is now the time for change? April 2017, Arizona State University job growth rankings put Pennsylvania at 36th out of 50th with a growth rate of only 0.65%. It's pretty bad. 2017, United Van Lines. Every year, that's the moving company, they do the National Mover Study to look at in-migration and out-migration, and they found that Pennsylvania is ranked 10th, meaning there are only 9 states that people are fleeing from faster than Pennsylvania. 44% inbound, but a 56% outbound. So what does that mean to us? Those of us remaining are going to have to shoulder more and more and more of the tax burden as we lose population. Tax Foundation Location Matters did a study, and they said that Pennsylvania is 49th out of 50th for attracting new businesses and firms, and dead last, 50th out of 50th for retaining the mature established firms that we have. So clearly we have a problem with businesses not wanting to come here and businesses leaving, which again results in less taxpayers, less revenue. So those of us that are left need to pick up more of the burden. So the bottom line is runaway property taxes are destroying our economy, devastating our job-producing small businesses, and driving away our residents. So the solution is to replace the school property tax with a more broad-based and equitable funding stream, and that's what Senate Bill and House Bill 76 do. So what are the goals of the bill? Well, first of all, it's the total elimination of the school property tax to be phased in over a 2-year period. Total elimination of school board taxing ability with specific exceptions, and I will mention those in a minute. Also, establish realistic limits that we currently do not have on increases in K-12 education spending and stabilization of school funding. Now, our opposition likes to say that the property tax cannot be replaced because it's a stable form of revenue for our school districts. And now when I hear that, the first thing I say is, well, stable for who? Stable for the homeowner? Well, obviously not, with that black line that you see increasing to the sky. I would also say this, if you look at this chart, this is another chart taken from the Independent Fiscal Office review of this bill. And if you see the red line below the black one, that is personal income tax revenue increases over that same time period of 1993 to 2013. The green line sort of in the middle there, that's sales tax revenue. So the argument they say is, well, we can't use these as funding sources because during times of economic downturn, they're not quote unquote stable enough to fund our schools. Well, if you notice the dashed blue line, the second from the bottom, that's your wage growth, that's your wage increases. And the very bottom line, that's CPI. You notice that both of them, the sales tax and income tax, are staying above both wage growth and CPI inflation, even during economic downturns. Those sources are plenty stable enough to fund our schools. But here's the biggest point. When was the last time your personal income tax was increased in the state of Pennsylvania? The answer is 2004. So during this chart, there was only one relatively small 0.26% percentage point increase in the income tax, but yet the state realized more and more revenue over time as it grows naturally, only with one tax increase during that. In fact, all the way up until now, we still have only had one PIT increase in Pennsylvania. The sales tax has been 6% since 1968, but yet it generates more and more revenue naturally without the need for constant tax increases. Now let's compare that to the property tax, the black line. How many tax increases do you think that black line represents? We have 500 school districts across the state. Every year, probably up to half of them increase taxes. We literally, no exaggeration, have thousands and thousands and thousands of tax increases to prop up the property tax. But yet, our opposition says that that is the stable revenue source. We're saying that's nonsense. The elimination tax swap in 76 must be tax neutral. This bill is designed to eliminate your school property taxes only. It is not designed to deliver more money or revenue from any other government program. How does the bill work? Well, there will be a moderate expansion of the sales and use tax base to include more items and services while maintaining exemptions for necessities like items of clothing under $50, medical and dental procedures, home heating fuel, public transportation, and quite a few other things. Currently, Pennsylvania has the fewest items and services exposed to the sales tax of any other state. And every year the legislature talks about expanding these to these other items anyway. So the point is, it's going to happen at some point. We're saying let's do it now, but let's give it back to the taxpayers in the form of school property tax elimination rather than using those things for something else. The bill would also increase the sales tax rate from 6% to 7%. And it would increase the state personal income tax from the current 3.07 to 4.95%. That is a 1.88 percentage point increase. Most folks pay far more than 1.88% of their income towards their school property tax. The current Act 1 gambling revenue that's currently allocated to relief, that goes back into the pot, and there would be a small retained property tax to pay off long-term debt, and I need to explain this to you. Some legislators had an issue with paying off the debt of the school districts from a state level source because we have some school districts that have a lot of debt and some that have no debt. And so they thought maybe it would be unfair to do so. So what the bill does is it retains just enough property tax after it's passed to fund debt service and debt service only. But in the meantime, the bill freezes their school's debt. It does not allow them to expand it for a longer term. It does not allow them to take out more revenue. It's frozen. And once that is paid off, then your school property taxes are completely eliminated. So you're probably asking, well, what would the reduction be in the meantime? Well, recently the PSBA did a webinar with the Independent Fiscal Office, and this question came up. And Mr. Ryan of the IFO stated that they did look at this, and on average, you would see an 82% decrease in the meantime, so that would only be an 18% retained property tax until the debt service is paid off. Now, every district would be different, but that is the average. All property tax revenue to be placed in an education stabilization fund. The revenue does not go into the general fund. It will not go into any other fund to be used for other things. It will be into that box. It's already allocated in the bill, and it goes right back out. It won't be rated and used for other things. We avoid the general fund with this revenue. All districts will be funded fully, dollar for total amount of local taxes eliminated. What your school district gets today in property tax revenue, it would get after SB 76 passes. And going forward, there will be annual funding increases to all districts based on the percentage increase in the Pennsylvania average weekly wage or percentage increase in the sales tax revenue, whichever is less, allocated to each district equally on a percentage basis. So here you see that going forward, we will be giving school districts increases, but they will be more based on the taxpayers' ability to pay. This question came up as well. What could the school districts, expect in increases going forward? Well, during that same PSBA webinar, the two gentlemen from the IFO said that in the short term they are predicting 3.2 to 3.3% increases going forward on just the property tax replacement revenue side. And that's without the need for any tax increases. So think about that. My district, while I was a school board member, we didn't increase taxes for the 4 years that I was on the board. Our district would have been better off under SB 76 with those 3.3% annual increases than they would have been under the current system. School funding, supplemental school funding through a local EIT or PIT. The bill would allow your school district to levy not a local property tax, but a local income tax, except the difference between now and after SB 76 is passed, we would no longer have just 5 school board members being able to vote to do so like we currently have with the property tax. It would have to go to voter referendum for your approval. It's important to note that about 36 or 38 other states have some sort of voter involvement approval for either school budgets or tax increases. Pennsylvania is one of the few that does not have this. 76 would institute that. So, if your school says, okay, I'd like to levy a personal income tax increase, they have to go to you, and on the referendum, it would have to state why they need it, and would have to state the purpose of the project, the cost of the project, the actual tax rate, so you know what you would be paying, and a sunset date. It could not go on forever in perpetuity just because you voted up once. For general school district funding, there would be a mandatory referendum every 4 years for the renewal of the tax. So even if you approve it, 4 years later, you get to evaluate how well they spent their money, and you can decide again whether to continue or not. You currently do not have that option today. The legislation is in full fiscal compliance with the financial analysis conducted by the Pennsylvania Independent Fiscal Office on 2013, October 1. Here are a few excerpts. I'm not going to read all of them, just a little bit from that IFO report that I keep talking about. These are direct quotes. The elimination of school property taxes increases the disposable income of property taxpayers. That's the first point where the IFO review says that most homeowners will in fact be will benefit financially from this bill. The analysis indicates that the legislation will cause home values to increase on average by more than 10%. Well, this is just common sense, right? If we're going to eliminate hundreds of dollars worth of escrow payments or property tax payments, clearly we're making home ownership more affordable for first-time home buyers, renters, and so on and so forth. So there will be more market activity in the housing market, which will help home values. Working-age homeowners realize a tax cut. Here again, here's the second time it mentions that we would realize a tax cut. It basically says that even with the sales tax increase and expansion and the PIT increase, you are still going to realize a tax cut. Those increases will not offset your current property tax, school property taxes in most cases. And of course, retired homeowners realize a significant reduction in taxes. Our seniors on fixed income are the clear winners under SB 76. The elimination of property taxes would significantly reduce the property tax share and would clearly increase the attractiveness of the Commonwealth for business location and expansion. If you remember earlier, we are at the bottom of the barrel for bringing new businesses here. It's hurting our economy. It's hurting us as taxpayers. This bill would essentially make the entire state what they call a KOZ, a Keystone Opportunity Zone, which would help to bring business expansion to the state. Benefits would accrue to home builders and home developers. Again, that's more common sense. More people buying homes, more homes will be built to help our economy. And the income flows through to individuals as higher disposable income. Once again, it mentions this. Basically what this says is you're going to have more disposable income, you're going to go out and spend it in the marketplace, and they assume probably about 70% of that will be spent on taxable goods and services, and that's going to yield another secondary economic benefit and result in about, they estimate, an additional $34 million in increased sales tax revenue. That, under this bill, goes directly back to your schools. So what are some of the common objections that we hear? Well, the biggest one we hear is loss of local control. And as the theory goes, if we fund our schools from a state level source, then your schools are going to have no decision-making ability at all. This is absolute nonsense. SB 76 does not in any way, shape, or form limit the ability of your school board to make any decisions that they can currently make. The only exception to that is you will no longer have 5 school board members being able to increase your property taxes at will. We're doing away with that. But to further elaborate on this, up in front, if you see these books up here, those are the regulations that your school board currently must follow. We have Title 22, Common Core, the 49 School Code. thousands and thousands and thousands of pages that your school district today must currently follow. So we don't consider that local control to begin with. And when the state can pass down pension increases, special education, mandates, and so on and so forth, Common Core, your school board did not have a choice, it was mandated. That's not local control, folks. In fact, we say that this bill expands local control by giving the voters a voice at referendum for tax increases. We also hear winners and losers, that this bill would create more, just different winners and losers. That too is nonsense. The current system creates the winners and losers. If you remember earlier, I said if we would reflect all of our income percentage of our school tax as a percentage of our income, we're all paying different rates, very great variance in those rates. The current system creates the winners and losers. The homes, the two equal value homes, they're taxed far differently. Winners and losers, that's the current system. Under SB 76, every single taxpayer in this room would be treated identically and uniformly. Every one of you, no matter where you live, you would all contribute the same 1.88% in the VIT, and you would be paying the same sales tax rate on the same items and services. SB 76 corrects the winners and losers problem that we currently have. Should eliminate for businesses. That's a little bit, sometimes I kind of consider it a bit of a class warfare argument, but really, as Senator Boscola said, currently we couldn't eliminate for homeowners and not businesses anyway, and as you saw earlier, we're in desperate need of bringing more businesses to the state. The numbers don't work. You will often hear the opposition say that the IFO report said that this would underfund our schools. That too is nonsense. The IFO report said no such thing. The IFO did put out a chart showing where we're going to go in tax increases if we stay on the same course, or where we would go if we pass SB 76. And of course, there is a big variance there, but the opposition likes to say that the IFO report stated that this would underfund our schools. I have personally spoken with the gentleman from the IFO and have confirmed that that chart absolutely does not reflect an underfunding of our schools. They never did a study of our 500 school districts to come up with a revenue need for each of those districts. That is a total misrepresentation of what that IFO report says. The plan does not help those who rent. Actually, it does. Renters do pay property taxes through their rent increases, as the landlords have to absorb property tax increases. Naturally, they just raise the rent to pass that on. It's a necessary thing for the landlords. But Jim, to my right, he found this chart here from the U.S. Census Bureau, and this shows median asking rent for vacant units from 1995 to 2015, almost the exact time period as the other charts I showed you. And as you can see, rents are going up as well as property taxes are passed along to renters. So here are a couple polls. I will close with these local polls. Lehigh Valley Live did one in January of this year, and what's the best approach on school property taxes? The first one was adopt HB 76 and kill the school property tax while raising the other taxes. That got 70% of the vote, going head-to-head against another option of just reduce school property taxes significantly with more moderate increases. Clearly, the voters, if they took this poll, they understood we have to eliminate the school property tax. Otherwise, it's going to continue, as I mentioned earlier, to increase, and now you're going to have those other taxes to pay on top. One other example, the Allentown Morning Call on 1/4 of this year. Do you think property taxes should be eliminated and replaced with more sales and income? Yes, property owners are shouldering too much of the burden was 94.2%. The no's were only 5.8%. So clearly, once the folks, the people understand how this bill works, they are in full support. And I would just like to close with this. We talked about a lot of numbers, but really at the heart of this issue, this is not really about the numbers. We do have to fund schools, as Senator Boscola said. It's our constitutional obligation. It's also a moral obligation. We are not trying to get out of funding our schools. We're simply looking for a more fair way. And fairness and morality and equity is really what's at the heart of this bill. Currently, as I mentioned, we have the winners and losers created under the current system. We're simply saying, look, we're shouldering too much of the burden. We want to pay our fair share, but right now we're paying far more than our fair share. There's no other tax that increases like the school property tax. There's no other tax that's annual on the same item over and over and over. There's no other tax that results in you paying more in taxes over time than you did for the item itself. And there's no other tax that the government comes and takes that item from you, in this case your home, for failure to pay your tax. It is absolutely atrocious. It is deplorable that people lose their homes to this tax at the rate of $10,000 per year. So we're simply saying, let's do away with this system. Let's treat everybody exactly the same from the west to the east to the north to the south. Let's eliminate the school property tax, because no tax should have the power to leave anybody homeless. Thank you very much.
Our next presenter, but we have to gear up here a little bit. So why don't everybody on the panel introduce yourself and why you're here, and then we'll get to that.
Good evening, Darren Euchre, Director of State Government Affairs for Pennsylvania Farm Bureau. Our organization has long-standing policy in support of the elimination of property taxes.
Jeff Garris, I'm the Outreach and Engagement Director with the Pennsylvania Budget and Policy Center. I'm Jeff Garris. I'm the Outreach and Engagement Director with the Pennsylvania Budget and Policy Center.
Jack Rose with the Lehigh Valley Association of Realtors, Better Wisconsin.
My name is Jim Rodkey. I'm with the London County Property Rights Committee, and we come at this from the latter approach where Ron was talking. We believe that education is important, that education should be funded, but if we can't find a way of doing that without stealing people's homes from them, then we have a serious problem in Pennsylvania.
Hi, my name is Cass Ched. I'm a wheelchair broker. Can you hear me now? Yes. Hi, my name is Cass Ched. I originally are from Center City, Allentown, and actually moved up to Carbon County back in 1997 with my husband. And so I always love to come back here. But I'm currently a broker owner with Remax Diamond First up in Carbon County, and currently your 2017 GLBR president of the association, which covers Lehigh, Northampton, and Carbon County. And the reason why I am just so pro, and this has actually been one of my platforms this year, is because it saddens me every time we go to do a listing appointment with sellers, especially senior citizens, or even today's families who are working hard, and the number one reason why they need to sell is because they no longer can afford their school taxes. They need to sell their homes, and these were homes that when they bought them, they thought that they would be there for years, want to live there till the very end, and unfortunately they just cannot, and they have no other way to do it but to sell their home. And what's really disheartening is because of this, because of how the schools just, I keep calling it like price gouging everybody. The reason why, one of the reasons that's really disheartening is because it's affecting the values of these homes. These people have lived them, fixed them up, took care of them, nourished them, all because, this is their little nest egg. And because of the schools and what they're doing, again, you see the values coming down every day, with the properties. So that is why, one of my missions. So again, I thank you all for attending tonight. This is just awesome. It really is. You should applaud yourselves for being here.
Up to the panel, and I know you introduced yourself, but if you want to make any brief remarks or something you've heard that you might want to talk about, please. Anybody on the panel, and then I'll open it up if you go to the audience.
I'll just be very brief. Farm families have constantly supported the need for property tax reform. Owning large tracts of land is no longer a true measure of wealth. Farm families are often land rich and cash poor just by the nature of farming. So I think their voice in the conversation for the need to reform property taxes is particularly salient. At the same time, farmers are price takers, not price makers. They have no control over the price of milk in the store, the grain that is sold, the bushel of apples. So they have to adjust to ever-increasing property taxes from their own income. They cannot pass on that cost of doing business to the end consumer. Farm families don't understand there's no such thing as a free lunch in this world, so they are willing to shift that burden to other, more equitable sources of income in order to eliminate onerous property taxes, and that's why we support efforts like Senate Bill 76. Thank you.
It's up there. So I'm going to just briefly go through this, and this is actually a presentation that we did back in March up in Woodstone. We had gotten together with the realtors. We went through our association, and part of this, and I didn't realize this, but part of my presentation tonight was put together by Kim Roberti, so hopefully I can do him justice to this. He's an attorney there. He actually does probably 90% of the tax appeals that are up in Carbon County. We've been fighting and we've been challenging, and I'm not sure if it's happening down here. I heard that it could happen soon. But up in Carbon County, we have been faced with, for probably about a good 6 years, reassessments after the sale. We kind of call it, years ago you would, always want the welcome wagon to show up at your door, and now instead of the welcome wagon, we have the tax collector and the reassessment guy showing up at your door. And what they're doing is they're basically spot assessing after the sale, even though the school districts will say that it's not a spot assessment. So what they're doing is taking the sales price that you purchased the home for, calculate it with their equation, and then times it out by the millage. And for some of the homes, their taxes or school taxes are actually raising anywhere from $2,600 up to $20,000 a year. So what we had did was back in March this is an issue that I've really been lobbying on. It's my mission here. Like I said, we got together to get everybody vocal on this, because this is the only way that we feel that we got to get the residents, we got to get buyers, sellers, residents whoever are in these school districts, to get them, vocal and got to get them off their couches, got to throw in the armchair quarterbacks and that, but they got to start lobbying and start getting vocal with the school districts. So shortly after this presentation, Jim Thorpe actually had started, back 5 years ago actually, Panther Valley schools had been doing this, and it actually just crippled that school district there and that whole community. So after that, Jim Thorpe this year had tried to do it. They actually had filed about 900 appeals. And through efforts of just, active, and I know there's quite a few Facebook sites out there, and people started rallying. They had school district meetings, and the numbers and the attendance just kept doubling and tripling. And I think by the last one, there was probably about 600 residents that were at the last school board meeting when they finally decided that they would stop it. So this is just, again, this is why 76 is just so needed, because at any given time, if the school district feels that they need more money, they're going to come back to us, the homeowners. And whether it's, somebody who isn't ready to buy or sell, and it was actually one of my first questions that I asked the school board was to them, to the directors, is there anybody here planning to buy or sell a home? And of course, none of them were, and I'm like, well, great, then this is, then this really is not going to even pertain to you. But just kind of going through this, if I can get this, yep, okay. I know his son did some funky things here. So he was just saying property taxes are, percent of the value. In Lehigh County, I think it was like 2.28% countywide. Taxes on 200,000 property were roughly about $4,500 a year. Northampton County, it was 2.6 countywide, so taxes on a $200,000 property were averaging out about $5,200 a year. And then I think we got into property taxes as a percent of a value, and again, I apologize for this, but Carbon County, you can see years ago when we decided to build, it was because you got more for your dollar. And I mean, we did, you know, we have a lot more land, but our taxes were up 3.48 countywide, and taxes on a 200,000 property were 6,900. So imagine that shock that we got after we moved up there. And Monroe County is really doing better than we are. They're at 4.24, and taxes on a $200,000 property are now $8,400 a year. Monroe County currently is going through a countywide reassessment. One real life example, this was actually a home, and this was one that I originally had listed a while back ago. This is just a standard colonial home in Carbon County that when it sold, I believe it was, we had it listed for like $325,000. When the gentleman had purchased it, I think his taxes went up to $10,000. Attorney Roberti actually took the reassessment, got it back down to $8,000. Once he sold that home, his taxes went back up to $14,000. The sad thing was that the buyer's agent never disclosed to the buyer what was going to happen. So I mean, they did file the appeal, but but the good thing for him is that he was a disabled veteran, so he's actually using the eligibility that he has, so to be eliminated from the school taxes. So property taxes since 2011, and again, this is around the area, was 2011 property taxes were $6,025 per year. 212 property taxes after the 310 purchase, I think it was 11,000. And this is just kind of going back as far as when they did the appeal. And in 2017, after a $275,000 purchase, they went up to 12,222. So again, this is again what they've been doing. Is that all that's on here then? Just is no more. That's it. Okay. So. Just again, more on the reassessment, and I apologize for the slides. As I said with Jim Thorpe, what they attempted to do was, the first week they held over 100 hearings, and out of the 100 hearings, the average increase was $2,600 at these. And again, you're looking at people that bought maybe from $50,000, all the way up. I know again, like, majority were like the average was 2,600. I think 2 of them were 11,000, one was 14, and then I think there was probably like 2 at 20,000. So again, it's just something that has been going on, and again, it's another real reason why 76 is just so crucial to get it done with. Again, it's just something that we've been fighting. My understanding is that Jim Thorpe probably after the elections will try this again, and my understanding now is that they're probably going to try to go back 4 years instead of going back 3 years.
Okay, thank you. I know that you've noticed that Senator Scavello just showed up. He represents the northern tier of Northampton County and Monroe. And so I'm so grateful that he came here today, and I know you want to say a few words.
Thank you, and good evening. I came from another event, and I knew I'd be late. I didn't think I'd be this late, but I really, truly appreciate everyone being here. This is such an important issue. And I'm sure you've heard it more and more every day. You should not be taxed out of your home, and the only way we're going to be able to do it. In 76 is a bill that I've been supporting for a long, long time. We also, and I'm sure that it was discussed earlier, in a parallel course, if we can't get the votes for 76, this November on the ballot, you probably have one of the most important votes that you've ever taken before. Answer yes on the question. In order to change the state constitution and treat residential homesteads differently than we treat all the other properties, we have to change the constitution. We have to vote it in 2 separate sessions. So in the last 4 years, we voted in the House and the Senate, and we had a lot of support for it. Then it goes on the ballot in November, and you're the final. The public is the final vote. And if you vote for 1.52 increase in personal income tax, eliminates school property taxes on all owner-occupied residential property. 1.52% increase in personal income tax eliminates all school property taxes on owner-occupied residential property. And that's the vote you're going to be taking. I already have the bill ready to go. Right after November, if it passes, and I can't understand why it won't. But at the same time, don't forget 76. Because this is not killing 76, it's a parallel vote. Okay? Thank you very much.
Whenever we go out and we do these sort of town halls where we have, you know, the people and then there's opposition to the bills, the opposition that we hear is always coming from a perspective of the school district. Ron was talking about stability and local control in terms of the school district, but what we don't talk about is the instability and the absolute lack of local control when it comes to the homeowner. You know, when the sheriff comes and knocks on your door because of an illness, because of a death in the family, because you got laid off, when the sheriff shows up at your door to sheriff your property, to seize your property from you, where is your stability? Where is your local control? You have no control over this. It's just an immoral way to do this. We're taking farmland away from farmers, where they're selling off an acre here, an acre there, to pay a property tax. You know, once you get rid of farmland, you don't get it back. That's not farmland that's going to be growing food. That farmland will be sold and developed. So we're losing farmland. I live in a community that's a very small city, but I see my neighbors who are doubling and tripling up because of rising rent. When I talk to them, they tell me they don't want to do this. They know the overcrowding in the home for their children. It's not something they want to see for their children, but they can't do otherwise. The choice has been taken away from them. Those kids are going to go into an educational system where they're coming from an overcrowded home where they're not getting proper rest, they can't really do their homework properly, and they're going into the school districts ill-prepared, which is adding to the expense of education. Plus, we're putting these children in overcrowded homes. That's the property tax. The property tax is driving up the rent for these people. And again, where is the stability for that family? Where is the stability for the children? And where is the local control? Like I said, the parents aren't doing this because they want to. They're doing it because they have to. It's the only way they can meet the rent. We can't keep running this state to fund education in this manner. We need a system that is fair to the schools and fair to the homeowners. We can't constantly measure whether or not this works for the school districts while ignoring whether or not it works for the homeowners. In the end, we have to pay the bills. Ron was talking about the unfunded mandates. It's true. There are a lot of unfunded mandates. I was reading a report over the week. In Pennsylvania, we have 209 regulations on the construction and sale of ladders. 209 regulations. We have a lot of unnecessary mandates, but we have other mandates. They all have to be funded. The school district doesn't pay those mandates. You do. And you pay for them through your homes. We have a Pennsylvania Constitution, Article 1. That's your Declaration of Rights. Sections 1, 8, 9, and 10 in the Declaration of Rights deal with your rights as protected through the Constitution. I believe the property tax and the institutions in place, such as the assessments, where I can tell you, we had an assessment 4 years ago in Lebanon County. I was shocked when I went into the assessment office and found pictures taken from my backyard by the person who assessed my property without never once knocking on my door and asking for permission to enter my property, which is against the law. They were taking, I live in a very small city. I don't particularly want the back of my home put online for anyone to see, including, we have a pretty high crime rate where I live, including the criminals in that community. Yet this happened during the assessment process. And I'm not alone. I talked to many other people who've done the same thing. Article 1, Section 1, 8, 9, and 10 all deal with the protection that you have of your property. I believe that you can make the argument that those rights are being violated. When it comes to due process, when the sheriff comes knocking at your door, there's no trial. There's no jury of your peers. You've been declared guilty, and they've come to take your home. Thank you.
From the panelists?
Let me take a stab at answering the question that I get asked so often, and I think I pointed it out earlier, whether I'm in Schuylkill County or Berks County in my district or otherwise, what the hell is taking so long? The problem, of course, is that not every part of the state feels as strongly as you obviously do. Lisa has indicated that it's especially problematic in Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, but we can win without those senators. And one of the ways that we can do this is by you reaching out to your friends and your neighbors from outside the area. Lisa's already voted for this once. She's a co-sponsor, so is Mario, so am I. So you don't need to keep sending us letters and emails, but you do need to reach outside the area, and you sending a letter or an email or calling the senator from Erie or Philadelphia or Pittsburgh isn't especially helpful, okay? Let's face it, they need to hear it from their own members, their own constituents. One of the things that Ron and Jim and his team have done at their own expense is they have traveled the state. So understand, this is not the way legislation usually works in Harrisburg. First of all, these guys drafted the bill at their own expense. Hours and hours and hours. I don't want to think how much time they put into this. Then they traveled across the state, again, at their own expense, to educate people so that they understand. Because while we know a lot about this bill here, that's not the case if you travel a couple of counties from here. And so they really, really need your help in helping us spread the word. I won't indicate exactly what town they were in, but there was a meeting a lot like this organized by one of our former colleagues in the Senate, and he thought he was going to organize the meeting to poke holes in 76 and tell you all the things that were wrong with it. Let's just say by the end of the night, he was ready to vote for the bill because he heard from his constituents that while this bill is not perfect, no bill ever created by the hand of man is. It's a heck of a lot better than all the alternatives. And so I just want to make sure that before we turn to the public questions, I answer that one question early on, and I thank you all for coming, because I know there are a lot of other things you could have been doing tonight that probably would have been a little bit more relaxing, but I can't think of anything that would have been more important. And again, thanks to all of you for coming.
So I want to open this up to the public. I really do need to hear from you. But before we do, and there's microphones, you'll direct them. Just so you know, because I'm your senator, where I'm coming from. I've been fighting this fight for about 20 years now. And, sometimes when you fight anything, you kind of want to give up. Well, the momentum is starting to build in Harrisburg because we have come to a tipping point on how we fund education. It's just simply unfair. And I've been reading a lot about how we tax in this country. And all the economists are saying, look, we're a more service-oriented community than ever before. So we're not taxing things the way that we should be taxing things to pay for services. This property tax is antiquated. It doesn't belong here anymore. You gotta tax goods and services, sales and use, and PIT. That's where you get, think about it. So you have homeowners in Northampton County. Not everybody's a homeowner, but I guarantee you more people buy goods and services. So who's paying for education, you expand it because you're getting people that are buying things. Then you add the PIT into it, personal income tax, and you get another growing group of people that might not be homeowners, but are paying into the system. So now what you have is a sales and use tax and a personal income tax, and you've got a bigger pool of people paying into the system, which means it gets more fair. And you're not overburdening one population over another. And then here's the other thing and why I fight this. Because it really is not fair that you could take the same home, whatever your home is, say take my home. Take my home and I move it to another county. They could be paying $2,000 in school taxes, or currently I might be paying $9,000. How is that even right or fair to begin with? And then you tell me, I've been a senator for a while now, I've seen and heard tears coming from people that have actually lost their homes. This is real. And now I'm hearing from people that want to go to counties where the tax rate on their homes for school taxes is a lot less. So now people are starting to make decisions on where to live based on the school property taxes. Where they're going to live in Northampton County or Lehigh County or Carbon or Monroe, because that difference is there. One home you could be paying $2,000 in property taxes, and that same home in another county, $10,000. How, just that in itself is not fair. So that's why I'm so, how about I'm getting some kind of change? I don't know what the compromise is going to be in Harrisburg. And you know what I tell the school districts sometimes too when they go, well, it's unstable. I go, when you get a personal income tax, there's an automatic increase there that the school districts are going to get every year, because when your pay goes up or you get a cost of living increase, they automatically get a chunk of your money. And that's a good thing, because then they won't have to raise taxes every year. So it's almost like you get this annual increase. All of us up here, every senator I know that voted for 76 cares about good quality education for our children. And then what I really don't like is when we are disparaged and say, you don't care about those kids. Everybody knows we care about those kids. I was in the public education system in East Hills, Freedom, Governor Wolf, the best public education system, and I want to keep it that way. But the challenge is, how do you make it fair and affordable? And that's where you start out with. And I think that's why this bill is so good. It needs to be worked out maybe a little bit more. And, you know, Ron, you keep hearing things that we might want to change. The latest is in Harrisburg. Maybe we increase the PIT and reduce the income tax by 50%. And then you get some people, some senators are like, I'm not voting for a 50% reduction. And we're like, why not? Well, because they're afraid the school districts are going to keep raising the property taxes, and then you'll have a sales tax and a PIT and the property tax. That's why the people don't trust that. And I remember like me. So remember Casey? It was on the ballot that year. I'm getting there. Casey, it was on the ballot, remember? And I vividly, Mom, you're here. Where's my mom? Raise your hand.
Here she is.
There you go. My mom and Dad were deciding what to do on that ballot question at that time. And I remember being, listening to them. I couldn't vote at the time. And they said they were so worried that, so they voted no. They wanted their property taxes reduced, but they voted no because they knew there would be a sales tax in place, an income tax, and then a property tax, and that property tax is going to go higher and higher and higher. And then you have those other two taxes in place as well. So the voters didn't trust that. They were smart. And that's why now you see this elimination bill, because we can't get enough votes for even a 50% reduction because of the mistrust. So that's where we're coming from. I'm going to continue to fight, but I need to hear from you and all our other senators and representatives. There's a lot of representatives who really haven't in Northampton and Lehigh County that haven't signed on to 76. You should really find out, I'll help you, find out who they are, and you need to talk to them.
By your vote in November, on the ballot, look for that question. It'll tell Harrisburg you've had enough. You need to go out to vote and put that vote down in November.
Lisa mentioned the question of, why elimination is so important, and I could hear from your comments that you understood completely. And I remember that referendum under Governor Casey, and I really do think, God bless his soul, he meant well. It was the worst defeat for a referendum question in the history of Pennsylvania, and it came down to, do you trust your government? The answer was, of course, no. And then someone told me, don't take it personal. And one of the classes that I taught for LTRIC this summer, I said, well, when did the mistrust of government begin? And one of my students said, George Bush in Iraq. And one of the other guys said, no, Nixon and Watergate. And I read them the Declaration of Independence, all right? And they said, okay, it's been a while. And then one of the other students said, how much do you know about the Roman Empire? So I guess it's been a long time, but that's the bottom line. That's why early on in this discussion, we got it. It has to be elimination. And so that's been the focus. And I just can't imagine anything else passing through the legislature or being approved by the voters.
I just want to add to everything what they're saying. You have no idea how critical it is that you stay positive and you keep lobbying for this effort. And you cannot just think that because they're on board that it's going to pass. It's really you. You are the ones that are going to make a difference in this. If you ever have the chance when they're in session, you can go online and you can actually view it, or even on public TV. And I just shake my head sometimes when the different representatives get up there, like when even 1213, I think there's 64 amendments to a simple bill to stop schools from reassessment after the sale. I mean, 64 amendments. I mean, really, it's ridiculous. But again, like they're saying, the whole state does not have this problem in certain areas of the state. And again, you need to stay positive and you need to keep spreading the word and keep championing, get people more and more positive. Because what happens is that as this vote gets closer, the school districts, of course, get more and more vocal. And they're the ones, again, that do not want to change because they're going to lose control. So if you stay, kind of like this and not keep voicing it, not keep encouraging them, again, they're lobbying, a simple yes right now can turn into a no, and we could lose it again by one vote. And we don't want to see that happen because we can't afford it. Because you can imagine how long it would take for them to take that, put it back in the drawer, and then probably wait another year or two for them to, modify it and bring it back out again. So this is crucial. And again, I just can't thank you enough. I know that this has just been your mission. You've gone on and on. I mean, you were like the little engine that could. And I know you're going to get it done for us this time. So thank you.
I don't think you realize this, but when we started out, 20 years ago, we might have had maybe 3 or 4 co-sponsors in the Senate. We're up to 24. There's 50 senators. A bill needs 26 votes to pass. So it fell shy of 1 vote. And there were some shenanigans that were played by the leadership and the governor at the time because I was convinced we had the 26. But I think somebody took a walk, went somewhere back to their district to avoid it. And another one was a co-sponsor and left too. So it was going to pass. It's just I don't think leadership in the Senate and the governor, since it's so monumental and change-wise, we're ready for that. But I'm telling them, you better get ready, because this isn't going away. It's just gaining momentum. So to think that it's just going to go away, it's never going away until you correct it. It's just the way it is. And then I said to the governor, Wolf, I go, hey man, you know what? If we get this done eventually, how about if I offer this incentive? I'll retire.
I will too.
Because, legislation that gets done. But the big picture stuff, and this is big picture stuff, totally changing the way you fund education is huge. It's monumental. We need to do this. And as senators and representatives, you elect us, right, to be leaders. Not to just be wallflowers and be scared of every little vote. Or here's why some senators and reps won't vote for this. They're so convinced they're going to lose their next election because their opponent is going to say, you raised my sale and income tax. Well, sure, but we eliminated property taxes. So I'm not afraid of that fight, but you have elected officials that kind of are. So they're more somewhat worried about their elections. So look at those people around that are your leaders. Real leaders stand up, take the challenges, and do some bold things. That's what this is about. Now it's your turn. Anybody have a story for me, please, or tell me what you're thinking? Go ahead.
Come up to the mic, please. You want to start there? You're there. Go ahead.
Is there just one last?
Yeah, I'd like everybody to see me.
Okay.
Okay, well, I can modulate pretty well. Okay, thank you. I'd like to introduce myself. My first name is Frank, and the last name I spell it for you. Foxtrot, April, Romeo, Romeo, Alpha, India, November, Alpha. I live in Palmer Township. I'm 83 years old. I live alone. And I'm a veteran. So far that I hear is that everybody is trying to justify why this man is doing this man is doing that. Maybe somebody didn't get the memo. The reason why people like me vote for you people to represent us is because I expect you to go to Harrisburg and do a darn job for me, not to worry about how many hours you work. Taxpayers, voters, we pay for your wages, we pay for your cars, we pay for your gasoline, we pay for your food, we pay for your clothes, we pay for everything that you own.
Okay.
So don't justify to me that you work too many hours.
Sir, you're 100% right, but you're talking to the choir here because we agree with you. You've got to understand, there's 50 senators and the magic number is 26. You have 3 votes in this room, right?
If you need somebody with a big mouth, and I'm free, willing, and able, anytime, any place in Pennsylvania that you want me to come, I will. And by the way, I pay my own way. And also somebody mentioned Bush started this and that, the other thing. Please, gentlemen and ladies, I'm not interested in what Bush did. I'm interested in what you're going to do to eliminate property taxes. Period. Speaking of Bush, by the way, the other Bush, my daughter, was a presidential security with the George W. original. The thing that you got to do is talk to your other 46, whatever it is, and explain to them that we can no longer pay it. By the way, just property tax is not going to do it. You've got to do something with pension reform.
We have it. We have it. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm not spicy. My name is Joel Sears.
Sir, please. Thank you.
My name is Joel Sears. I'm from York.
and I'm one of the charter members of the Pennsylvania Coalition of Taxpayer Associations, and I head up a group in York County. Among the things that I guess I like to do is to actually look at the numbers. This is an emotional topic. There's a moral component that you cannot deny. There's also a constitutional issue that rarely gets mentioned, and that's the uniformity clause. Our Constitution not only calls for property protection, but it also demands uniformity in tax rates. Cass was talking earlier about some of the variations. Senator Boscola said the same thing, that you can have a house in one county that's assessed exactly the same as a house in another county, roughly the same market value, but with 3 or 4 or 5 times the property tax rate. Where I come from, and I think where Jim Rodkey comes from, those tax rates based on those variable assessments cause the values of the homes to be dramatically affected. In the city of York, for example, a $200,000 property will have a tax rate of $12,000. Right across the street in Spring Garden Township is roughly $4,000. So you can see what that does to the movement of people across the city and township lines. It's a really strong attractor and deterrent as well. And as the property values are affected, they go down in the cities. The next thing that happens, like it or not, is that it attracts a low-income demographic, which drives down the performance in the schools. It's a natural effect. I've worked up some figures. I like to do this. The members of the panel have these pages to take a look at. And it shows the disparity in something that should be a measure of uniformity. If you consider, for example, the taxes that you pay on your home as a percentage of what that home is worth, in a uniform system, that percentage should be the same across the county. But it never is. Uniformity is virtually impossible. You can take a look at the samples that I put together here, 15 from Lehigh County, 15 from Northampton County, and the ratios are all over the ballpark. In the last presentation that we made, we looked at some of the impact in Lancaster County after the countywide reassessment, which was just complete. The dispersion in most neighborhoods got worse. The uniformity wasn't better, it was actually worse. Why is that? These assessments take place over a 3 or 4 year period of time. The economy swings up and down. The rates get locked in one area, then 4 years later they get locked in another area, and that's it. Lancaster County went to the trouble of setting up hours, many hours, for their residents to come and appeal. They knew they were going to have trouble. They knew the folks that got the 50, 80, 90% increases in their assessments were the first ones that would be in line to appeal. And if they appeal successfully, what happens? The base isn't maintained. This is supposed to be a revenue-neutral exercise, and it never is. The revenue goes down because the folks that get the reduction in the assessment don't come in and say, wait a minute, you under-assessed me. I've rarely seen that one happen.
Sir, a lot of this happened because of a lousy law back in 1991. They used the 1990 census to fund education and fund all parts of government using that 1990 census.
But with all due respect, Senator, that has nothing to do with
yes, it does. No, you're right. But here's what happens. If you are in an area that lost population,
understood,
you're getting funded at that census from 1990.
I understand that.
If you're in an area that stayed the same, you're getting funded at that same number. But if you're in an area like this area right here that's grown in the last 20 years, that builds schools, you're getting hurt because you're still funded at that old formula. So I just want you to know that.
I understand that, but it's also magnified by the fact that you have this huge dispersion, which has nothing to do with that 1991 law. I'll cut to the chase here. I hope you will take a look at this. Anybody who would like one in the audience, I'll be happy to give my card. I'll send you this stuff. This is fundamental to this legislation. Property taxes are based on an ununiform assessment system, and therefore they are unconstitutional. It's that simple. Your oath to office was the first official act you took when you were elected, and that was to uphold and defend the Constitution. Please do it.
Thank you.
If I could just add to that. The assessment process is the best we have to make the property tax fair. And Joel's right, it fails miserably. That's because you can't fix the property tax. You have to kill the property tax.
director as well. And I have a question for Mario Scabella, Senator Scabella. From what I understand from 1285, it takes the same process 76 takes by pushing the state level and gives it to the local level. So instead of the state increase in earned income tax and sales tax, it's given to each individual school district according to what I read. And it gives them the option of swapping property taxes with some other tax. An option is not a requirement. So I don't understand.
Well, let me explain it to you. If you guys vote for the 100% exemption on the ballot, then we can take the next step. But we need to change the Constitution. We already approved it in the House and Senate in 2 separate sessions. If we get the permission from the voter to treat owner-occupied residential differently. Now, we could do a, I'm just giving you the bill that I have is going to raise the PIT 1.52 and eliminate school taxes on on owner-occupied residential, the homestead. So the school districts will get exactly what they were getting the year before, and any increase that whatever that generates, that 1.52 generates, okay, will go back to the school districts.
Well, what I don't understand is, do we have the wording for that referendum yet? Because I'm one of those ones that don't trust government.
Yeah, the wording is going to be on the ballot. Let me tell you something. You're going to need a lawyer to understand it. I'm going to let you know that. That's why I'm telling you, vote yes on the question.
So the wording's already done.
Yeah, and you'll need a lawyer to explain it to you. Vote yes on the question, and we'll take care of it.
The Attorney General writes it. Did he do it yet? Yeah. All right, we'll get that for you then.
Can we get that?
We should do that.
Thank you.
I think it's already available on my website if you
Let's put it on mine. Mario, you get it up on yours.
Do you know, I can add to that. I can add to that, tell you that I know out in PAR in Harrisburg, the Realtor, the legislative, they have approved a budget. So there's actually will be TV ads in that and other marketing campaigns that will basically be focused to you, the consumer, so that you can, have a better understanding of what this bill is, how it will be read, so that you can totally understand it, so that you can vote favorably for it. So that initiative, I think, should be coming out within the next, 2 weeks.
And remember, if you're in this room and you rent, one thing that this will do is it'll make home ownership more affordable. Because you now can qualify, you don't have to worry about that school tax, that $5,000 or $6,000 school tax, property tax, school property tax bill, that you puts you out of that income level to qualify to buy a house. So it'll make home ownership more affordable for people.
Great. Next, guys.
My name is Bruce Lake, I live in Palmer. The question is it true that the last time they voted on it, they shot down by a lobbyist, by the teachers union?
Oh, I think there's multiple levels of discontent with this bill, 76. For instance, when we talk about expanding the sales and use tax to more items, every lobbyist under the sun that represents one of those special interests is in my office. For instance, we would tax advertising, legal fees. There's a whole slew of things when you expand the sales tax base. In fact, I said to somebody the other day, you go to the movie theater and you'll be taxed on the popcorn, but not the candy. Our system is a little just schizophrenic on the things that we tax and don't tax. I'd like to see it more uniform with what other states do. And so my whole point is, funny enough, there was even the Chamber of Commerce was against 76 because their businesses that represent them, they were going to be taxed. Some of their goods and services were going to be taxed. Even manicures, things like that. So you would have those special interests coming in saying, don't tax me. And then lawmakers got upset with that. Like, some don't know how to handle that. The minute they come into my office and say, Lisa, we want to be exempt from 76, meaning, when we expand it, they all come in and they go, we want to be exempt because we're special. Don't tax us. I'm like, no, the only way this works is if everything's included, and I'm not exempting anyone. And they're just like, oh, okay, and then they leave. Okay, so they know where I stand then. It's like, no, you're not special, nobody's special. We all have to pay into this system, and the only way it works is if we expand it. So it wasn't just teachers.
you know what happened, they never expected it to be that close a vote. So the people that voted for it now, there's all these special interest groups are pounding on that. Now, we have been pounded on, and we're standing firm. And we have about 15 or 16 that's standing firm. But we got the others that are getting beat up pretty badly by some of these special interest groups. And that's what's creating the problem. That's why it's stalled right now. And we need to continue to do these type of events. And some of them, frankly, quite frankly, they're different.
Well, first of all, I don't believe in lobbyists. I don't think they should be in Harrisburg. I don't think they should be in it. Because they can make a change their mind. If they can make you change your mind, you don't deserve to be in that seat to represent us.
Sir,
it should be.
You could be, let's say, someone that's being taxed and is in your business. When you come to us, you're actually lobbying us not to vote for it because it's taxing you. I'm just using that as an example. And that happens quite a bit to us. But I tell them, don't look at what I'm taxing. Look at what you're saving. Because I don't know if you folks know, about 30 to 35% of sales tax is paid by people that visit the state. When they stay in a hotel, they're paying 6%. When they go to the restaurants, they're paying 6%. In Philly and Pittsburgh, they're paying even more than that. So much of the sales tax in the Commonwealth is paid by people that visit Pennsylvania.
And also, the biggest problem is the accountability of the school systems. There's nothing wrong. I mean, I believe in helping pay education for children. But you know what? I don't believe in taking care of their daycare children. I believe that we should pay for all their meals and all their lunches and all the other little things that the school system pays for. I can cover my IRS, I would. But we should be responsible to schools when they give them cards of lunch. And even as far as the teachers are concerned, I mean, if the teacher worked a full year, I wouldn't even have a problem with them being paid for what they get paid. And you know what? Nobody pays my pension. I shouldn't have to pay theirs.
And just so, the governor has engaged the PSCA and other school boards across the state to try to get them involved in this legislation because we don't want them to be opposed to it. It's very difficult to pass it with them opposed to it, but I'm telling you, they have been really great out there. Some superintendents, even locally, we've engaged them, we've had meetings with them just to explain what's in the bill. They're explaining what they think might be a problem, and we're trying to address it. So I would say the movement, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, you saw more against it on the school board side, maybe, or the teacher, and not even teachers, individual teachers. It's kind of like the union side. But they're being more involved in this process now. Because I think they even recognize that we have a real issue here on how we fund education. So they're starting to become partners in this to some extent. And I think that's a good thing.
Just to add to that, my wife works for a lawyer in the Bar Association as opposed to this bill. But we don't know a single lawyer who is opposed to the bill, just the Bar Association. In the same breath, the PSCA, the administrative level of this, is opposed to it. Yet many of the teachers are in favor of it. The school board officials, their overhead, they're opposed to it. A lot of the officials are starting to come our way. We've had meetings with school board officials who talk about the merit of this bill. We've had meetings with elements of that. It doesn't matter where you go. With small businesses, the chamber says the small businesses, are going to get hurt by this. Yet every small business I've talked to supports it. And I've been to a lot of places in this state on that. Every small business supports it. It's just the official lobbying group for that organization. I don't think they're connected to their members. And they should get connected. Meetings like this actually cause that to happen.
Okay, you're next.
Good evening, my name is Mike Bryant. I happen to be a school board director, Wilson Area School District.
We're very fortunate that we have very small debt and have some cash on hand. But for the last 2 years, we've had to dip into that savings at $600,000 each and raise taxes 3%.
Pension generated probably, right, sir?
Exactly, because we only have, the general was talking about unfunded mandates, we only have control of 1/3 of the budget because of the unfunded mandates. I voted no on the last 2 budgets, but I'm only one of 9. And we do have a superintendent who does have concerns about going into the type of funding that you're proposing, which I'm for, by the way. The other thing is I'm also running for supervisor for Williams Township. And as I'm getting around talking to people during my candidacy, I'm getting a lot of questions. Both because they know I'm on the school board, and secondly, having to do with how they're going to help, how SB 76 is going to help them hold on to their homes, because we've got a very rural district and a very, very small amount of money that we take in from industry or commercial. We just don't have it. It's primarily farmland. So we've got the same issue in the township that we're trying to find a way to have exceptional schools, which we do have, but it can't last. And then the only answer would be that we would have to lay off teachers, and then we'd have to raise class sizes, and then there would go the quality of the education. So I'm positive that we're going to work together, and that's one thing I will be doing as I'm continuing to go out on my campaigning, is to get everybody to vote yes on November.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
My name is Linda Robertson. Thank you for having the meeting here tonight. I think what is troubling to me is what's not being said. There are 2,000 items that are going to be put on the sales tax list if this bill is passed. And a lot of them, I can pay these taxes, but they're regressive for single women, single mothers. Some of the things that are going to be taxed are, I don't care if they tax hairdressers, but daycare will be taxed. Substance abuse services, developmental disability, and vocational rehabilitation services, these will all be taxed on top of your fees. Non-tuition fees at colleges, parking fees, personal hygiene products, non-prescription drugs, and then looking around at the room, some that may hit a little closer to home. There will be taxes on home health care services, nursing care, assisted living facilities, accounting services, funeral services, and caskets. So that Senate Bill 76 would be making Pennsylvania one of only 3 states in the nation to tax something that is vital to human existence. As I say, I couldn't be able to pay those, but a lot of people are going to find themselves squeezed even more when they're talking about buying basic necessities of life that would eat up a disproportional amount of their income. Finally, the Independent Fiscal Office that many of you have referenced today estimates that during 2015 to 2025, Pennsylvania's working age population will contract or decrease by 222,000 residents. Over that same decade, the number of retirees will grow by 673,000. And again, Pennsylvania does not tax retirement income, so the burden to fund schools through Senate Bill 76 will fall disproportionately on the young and the working class. So I ask, why would young people move to a state with that kind of high personal income tax? I believe that the General Assembly must debate the current system of school funding and bring your best ideas to the table. I find it interesting that Pennsylvania has more than any state in the nation. It gives out over $700 million in corporate welfare every year. Corporations are treated differently under this bill. So I don't think you can say that you're eliminating special interests when you talk about this. You don't get something for free. I believe that property taxes in Pennsylvania have to be looked at very carefully. Every one of us in this room who's a homeowner has the right to go under the Pennsylvania homestead exemption system too. There are 30% of people who haven't even bothered to do that. You have to know what your rights are, but you also have to know what you yourself can do to manage your own tax situation. If something sounds too good to be true, which is what eliminating property taxes sounds like, it usually is too good to be true. And I think if you would talk to Dr. Roy, the superintendent for the Bethlehem schools, you might get a different story. And then just to finish.
Can I just stop you for a moment, because you did bring up, we want to answer almost everything you said. So I'm going to start, and then I think Senator Argo, and then we'll have a couple of more comments. So I want to talk about the economic side, because you're talking about people, there's not going to be any jobs down the road, or people are going to be retired. And I'm going to tell you a story. I talked to an owner of a hotel in Stroudsburg. He has a very tired hotel, and he pays about $120,000 a year in school taxes. I said to him, what would you do if you didn't have that bill? He says, just take a look at my hotel. It's very tired. I would spend half of that to start to renovate my building. So when he spends, let's say, $60,000, he's created jobs to renovate that building. On top of that, he said, look at me, I'm running around, I need some help. I'm going to hire 1 or 2 employees. Because by doing that, I'm going to pick up business. I'm renovating my building, so I created jobs. And I'm going to pick up business, because now I have more help. If you're a homeowner and you want to expand your house or add a room to your house, you're afraid to. You know why? It's going to trigger an assessment.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So you're living. You'll go out and add that room to the house. And when you add that room to the house, guess what? You created jobs. Okay, so
when we sat down with the taxpayer groups, there were a lot of different ideas on how to get to the elimination. There were some groups that said, we'll put it all on the sales tax. There were other groups that said, put it all on the income tax. You've seen the final version that came one vote away from passing the Senate for the first time in history was a compromise. What we have talked about with Ron and David Baldinger and all of the groups is, if this question on the ballot passes this fall, and I believe it will, by allowing us to treat business property and homeowner property differently, it would allow us, should we choose to do so, to get to the 26 votes by eliminating all the expansions on the sales tax that you found so objectionable. I know Ron has talked about a couple of times about, who wants to pay a tax on caskets? But the good thing on that is you only do it once. Property taxes, year after year. We heard all the objections. One of the possibilities, again, and it's up to the voters. If the voters vote yes, it would allow us to have much less of an impact on the sales tax, because that cost us a lot of votes in the Senate. There was no doubt about that. You also mentioned the subject of retirement income. If I'm not mistaken, the Casey referendum did put a tax on retirement income, and so I'm thinking that the reason that issue died such a terrible death in the 1980s might not have been just because they didn't trust government. I'm pretty sure they did not like the idea of taxing retirement income. It's an option, but I can't imagine that ever getting 26 votes in the Senate.
I'd like to respond. If I can respond to her comment, since I have not commented yet this evening. The point that she's raising is one that has a lot of resonance with some of the service provider organizations and some of the folks working with low-income people in Pennsylvania. I can tell you that virtually every food bank, every food pantry in the state has expressed deep concern about some of the earlier versions of Senate Bill 76 and House Bill 76 that would put a tax on grocery items on the food that people put on the table. Now, there have been some exceptions for WIC eligible items, which is actually a fairly small, narrow list of people, does not address anything beyond women and infants. But there's a lot of concern about the impact of a sales tax on grocery items. And I believe the original projection the IFO had of the bill was that this was going to raise about $1 billion from sales tax on grocery items. So that is a concern that a lot of folks have. And I'm going to add one final comment. Folks have talked here about the fact that there's not necessarily this level of support all over the state. And in fact, there are some areas of the state that have quite low property taxes by comparison. This is not one of them. This area, you folks have very high property taxes. I work with the Budget and Policy Center. We looked through every school district in the state. We looked at property taxes. We looked at income levels. We looked at home prices. By every possible measure, there's a lot of the state that is not facing high property taxes. There are places that are, and there are folks that are very sincere about trying to find ways to address those problems without a complete change in the system. And if you want to have an impact, I have to tell you, I've sat here tonight, I'm with an organization that doesn't support Senate Bill 76. You've had one person who's come up here tonight in front of this room that's much more of a pep rally, I think, than anything else, who's expressed some reservations, and she got booed. If you want to convince people in other parts of the state about the merits of this plan, you're going to have a more honest and respectful dialogue with them. That's all.
I just need to address one thing here. Again, we're talking about school districts and we're not talking about the homeowners. How many homeowners have to lose their homes before we realize how bad this problem is? But just because I'm not losing my home, it makes it okay. That's not how I see it. I've met too many people who are losing their homes, and I'm going to defend them, even though I'm not at risk yet.
All right, I'm not going to use this, I hope. I'm going to control this thing.
Okay. Yeah, my name is Deb Hunter. I come to this from a few perspectives. Okay, I'm a taxpayer like everybody else in this room. I live in Northampton County. We also have a small farm. When I say a small farm, I mean a small farm, but it's not so small that I am not able to put it in the 319 clean and green. Plus, let's not forget the farm preservation money that's out there. So when this gentleman on the end is talking about farmers and the problems of farmers and taxation, there have been relief programs in there, except I would remind you that the House right now, the revenue thing that they can't get straight, they are talking about slashing farm preservation funds, just to let you know. So there goes tax relief for some of those farmers. Now, with regards to business, I haven't heard, when this gentleman right here, Ron Bolts, when you say that business around here, I'm talking, is bad, the warehouses that are going up around here, we are becoming a box farm. And they take up a lot of land. And if you get rid of this property tax, guess who's going to get relief? Big time. Big time.
No.
Oh yeah. Now what I'm hoping that I'm hearing from some of these folks is this referendum that you're putting up there to separate these two is going to allow the businesses to still have their property taxed. I like to see that referendum before I trust you on that one.
It's a simple referendum, but the Constitution says we cannot tax businesses and any property has to be taxed uniformly. So the critics of 76 said, if we do this, we're going to give businesses a windfall because they'll see their property taxes reduced.
Exactly.
That's why the referendum went on there, so now we can tax the business community differently. So they will be paid.
And then we'll see where it goes from there. We'll hold you to your word then when you break businesses out that you are indeed going to tax them.
Miss, let me just, I
would like to finish.
I know, but I did, you made a comment, I think you should get the answer. I did state that the House and Senate in two separate sessions voted for it. That means, and it was bipartisan, almost unanimous, there's one person in that Senate. So it will go. They've already voted for it.
I understand, but I would like to see what that tax is going to be then, if you can separate it out. Because
1.52.
they've got to pay their fair share. They are coming in here, lots of them are getting into these tax incentive zones. They don't have to pay sales tax, EIT, all of that stuff, and now you're going to take away their property tax. Let's just think about that. Okay, let's see, and also one other thing. With regard to the state budget, when you're talking about revenue projections that this is going to bring in, please remember that this is a state that in revenue projections you came up short several times now. Predicting revenues is difficult, okay? But I would also remind you that House members, are you House members, some of you sitting here? I don't know, okay. House members, right now, that team, that gang that came up with this latest proposition, basically they are saying that Pennsylvania does not have a systemic budget problem. These are the people who cannot predict revenues. I hope you all are following this in the newspaper. I'll take my...
Yeah, we couldn't predict that. A lot of people would quit smoking.
Boy, got a lot to talk about. First of all, the revenue predictions weren't by legislators, but by the IFO based on current sales and the current income tax revenues in the state. They weren't projections. Second of all, you mentioned clean and green and so on and so forth. Well, that might be great. I understand the clean and green program came in around, around the 70s as a result of outrageous property taxes that were taxing farmers off their farms. So yes, clean and green is great for them, but it's a Band-Aid. It's a Band-Aid that everybody else in this room has to pick up the tab for. Those are not solutions. KOZs are corporate welfare. Those are not solutions. This is an unfixable system of funding public education. And if we're going to talk about corporations getting such a windfall, why is the Chamber of Commerce opposed? And I would also, as you're trying to be told that, well, we can't, they have to pay their fair share. Well, first of all, the property taxes that businesses have are passed along to you, the consumer. Whether you like it or not, businesses don't pay taxes. Everybody in this room does. And as far as the split, that's about 30%. 70% of this revenue would go back to individual homeowners. So that's the split. So do you want to cut off your nose to spite your face and say, well, we got to make sure these corporations, these big evil corporations, are paying their quote-unquote fair share, when they're only going to get back about 30% of this revenue? Everybody that's a homeowner, that's about 70% of the share. I think as we go across the state, overwhelmingly when we talk about this issue, homeowners are more than willing to pay those other increased taxes. And let's also keep in mind that every single employee, including the CEOs of these corporations, are also going to be paying the increased income tax as well as the sales tax, which is why we find the wealthiest among us are the most opposed to this bill, because that 1.88% PIT increase might result in them paying more after 76 is passed than they do currently in school property taxes. So, as we're going to do the class warfare argument, let's keep that in mind.
Go ahead, ma'am.
I'm Censor in Polo. I've been in Hampton County all my life, for the last 5 years. Can you hear me now? Okay, I didn't even know this in the bill. I've been in Boscola Township for 20 years. You want to attract more businesses, let's fill the empty storefronts we have now and keep them here. You want to attract more employees, raise the freaking minimum wage to a more livable wage. I was still in my 60s, and I had 4 people depending on my check, minimum and part-time. What you don't understand is the employer can cut your hours at will. He can cut you down to 5 hours, 10 hours. Try supporting 5 people on that. And the sales tax, I'm against. Governor Casey, the one thing I liked about that idiot was he was going to eliminate the 6% sales tax, and you guys want to raise it. Why? That's going to hurt people on the low income. That's going to hit middle income. That's insane. That's insane.
Well, it captures some of the out-of-state people, and it captures all of what I call the illegal money, and people making money under the table, and all that money.
Yeah,
people claim they don't have. They buy things. When you're buying something, you're making a decision to take that out of your wallet. So it's kind of of almost like a personal decision you're making
Yeah.
on what you're going to buy and how much you're going to spend for it. So you do have control over those dollars coming out of your pocket.
But
That's why I
this
kind of like the sales.
This is not Philly. This is Bethlehem Township.
We exactly know it's Bethlehem Township.
We have high rises coming up. How about houses for middle income and let Habitat for Humanity come in? So people with low income have a decent place to live and that they can afford it. When Southmont Way came in, some outfit wanted to buy the strip of homes where I live on William Penn up Greenwood Road. And the lawyer for one of the neighbors said, I'm sure they pay you fair market value. I said, yeah, I wouldn't go by fair market. My home, I live here, my husband lives here, I had 3 cats, I was close to all my family, all my businesses. They pay what I want. And he asked me what my price would be, and I told him, and his face went white.
Good for you.
Yeah. So they stopped doing that. But traditions of America are coming in.
Thank you. We're going to have to
Can I just add something? I think a lot of people need to realize that, I mean, we're just talking 1% more, which is really not a lot. Hold on. Oh, let me finish. When you think of a lot of the homeowners whose school taxes are even more than what they're paying for their mortgage. I mean, seriously, 1% is not a lot. I mean, and I don't know how many people in this room here would really be opposed to paying 1% if it meant that they'd be able to keep their home until actually, till the very end, as long as they had planned to. I mean, I'm planning to stay in my home as long as I possibly can. I don't want to lose it just like some of my sellers have lost it because they can't afford it anymore. 1% is not a lot.
No.
I mean, if it's popcorn, I don't care. I'll give it up.
I could have kids, so why should I have to pay school tax?
Well, you know what? And excuse me, you know what?
We have a whole bunch of people. I have to keep this moving. And you can come talk to me anytime.
Hi, my name is Elizabeth Lishner, and we live in Salisbury Township. Before I address your issue, I'd like to address the gentleman who brought up teacher salaries. I don't know a single teacher who went into it for the money. Every one of them could make way more working in the private sector. They all work many more hours than they spend in school. If they get 2 weeks vacation a year, that's pretty good. Because they spend their summers taking courses, taking education, planning for the following year. They're working all the time. There's very little downtime for a teacher.
Give me a break.
Well, I just want to address that dialogue. And on this issue, education is the single most important thing that we pay for.
Respect for the people that are talking.
So, I'd like to know, this bill is not going to reduce the funds that are going to be available to school districts. Why are administrators so worried about it, and why are they talking about cutting programs? And then what guarantees are there that the funds will be available to the districts in a timely fashion? What assurance do we have that these funds won't be borrowed from, as the feds have borrowed from Social Security? And then also the sales tax increases will hurt the people who can least afford it. And the increases on those things that are necessities of life, healthcare, groceries, maybe tax processed food so that we eat healthier, tax soda, so that we don't pay taxes on healthy food. But those are the things that are going to hurt the people who can least afford it. And those people are usually not homeowners. And what protections will there be for them? Income tax already has special provisions built in so that if you make low income, you don't pay extra taxes. But I think we need to consider, instead of special provisions, having a deduction of a certain amount per person so that the first so many dollars don't get taxed, and maybe even consider graduated income tax rather than a flat tax.
The way the bill works, and I'll give a short answer because otherwise I'm going to get gavelled down by the chairman, because I know we're now running past the deadline, is that The IFO certified that the bill works. It took us a while, but we got it to work. Every dollar raised from the expanded income, sales, and existing gaming taxes goes into a separate fund. It can't be used for potholes. It can't be used for anything else. And it would replace dollar for dollar. So if the Bethlehem School District today gets $10 million from the state under our system as devised by these taxpayer groups, next year they would get the identical amount. And then there's a cost of living increase built in, so every year they would get more, every year they get more. Why are they opposed? Me, I think because they're afraid of change. We've had this system since 1834. It's rotten at the core, but at least they understand it. And I think they're afraid that this is a major, major change from the way we do business.
Okay, and can you guarantee that nobody can stick an IOU in that pot?
Under existing law, they would, it just simply wouldn't work.
And there'll be tight audits and controls on it?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Such a bargain, such a good answer.
I'm going to be brief because I know we only have a short period of time, but I started my career in finance, went into marketing, so really looking at the analytics, and then now I'm in real estate. So I can really empathize. I never want to see anyone lose their home, and I wish you could just immediately pass a law that taxes can never be the reason for someone to lose their home. I also care a lot about our kids. I was very active in United Way, Women United, so I know the importance of a great education. So I know that, you know, with all the pros that I've heard tonight and some of the cons, I'd like to see both. I'd like to weigh both sides. I don't know if there's a trimmed down version or a non-lawyer's version that we can actually look at it, because people must have some valid concerns as to why they don't want this. I can afford the 7% tax. I can even afford an increase in tax on my pay. Not everybody can do that, and I have no problem with that. What I do have a problem with is if we institute something that doesn't work, then they come back and say, well, hey, we tried to grow it, and it's not working. Right now, you say that, you know, school tax, you showed us charts of how school tax raised every year, and they're tremendous. But we still have a deficit. And we'll still be paying property taxes until we get out of that deficit. What I'd like to know is how long we're going to be paying property taxes. When will we get out of that deficit?
District by district. There are some districts in the state that have no debt, so they would go immediately 100% no property taxes. I think the average school district that we saw, Ron, correct me if I'm wrong, 10% to 20%. And so and what's important under the law, under the bill, they wouldn't be able to keep piling on more debt. So some school districts would be done in 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. Some other troubled school districts would still, 10 or 15 or 20 years. But I mean, imagine this. We're arguing about whether an 80% decrease in your property tax is good enough. Those are the kind of arguments I like, okay? It's much better than the current deal. But I would encourage you to go on to our website. If you don't trust your elected officials, I understand. Go on to Ron Boltz's website at the Cyber Coalition, the taxpayer groups. There is a lot of good information.
Okay, so there's a whole outline. It's just like the lady that came before. I like to read everything. I like to analyze. So if we were already in a deficit and we saw a growth in property taxes year after year, what's to say that this solution is now going to get us?
The best guess that we could get was from the independent fiscal office. They're not Republicans, they're not Democrats, they're not House, the Senate governor, they're truly independent.
Well, we see how that's working on a federal level. So I mean, from the state level, I just understand the level of confidence that we can have in some of these numbers.
I guess, thank you.
Just a quick response to your comment. We were talking about feeling concerned about both sets of issues and being concerned about children. I and the people I work with feel the same way that folks here feel about the idea that people should not lose their homes because of taxes. We also believe that every child in Pennsylvania deserves the opportunity to have a quality education that prepares them for the jobs of today and the jobs of tomorrow. And one of the concerns that a lot of folks have is we've laid out the idea of the dollar-for-dollar replacement of this. Right now in Pennsylvania, Because of our over-reliance on property taxes, Pennsylvania has the largest disparities in education funding of any state in the country. The inequities in this state are so great that we have children in the poorest school district in the state who are being educated with less than $10,000 a year. Students in another zip code are receiving an education where they're spending more than $25,000 a year. Now, funding and money doesn't make all the difference, but that kind of disparity, that kind of inequity in the funding of our schools, that does make a real difference. And that's one of the concerns that some of the folks have with the proposal under Senate Bill 76, is that it actually doesn't address this inequity, but it in fact locks it in permanently for the future, unless there's some change to address and come up with a more equitable source of funding. That's one of the concerns that we have. If you want to read information from a variety of points of view, you can visit Pennsylvania Budget and Policy Center's website. We have information there, pennbpc.org. Glad to give you a card afterward.
We need to address this disparity argument because this comes up all the time. The property tax is the actual reason we have the disparity in the first place. So it's extremely illogical to say we're going to reject 76 because of this disparity issue. The property tax and local revenue caused it in the first place because some districts have the ability to raise revenue locally, others do not. And then on the other side, we have this state funding formula that, by the way, locked in the whole harmless and baked all of those inequities in place. That's trying to counteract the fact that property taxes, different districts have the ability to raise more or less revenue locally. So it's always reactionary. It will never, ever catch up as long as local revenue is in the mix. And more folks across the country, not just the state, the country, are starting to realize that local revenue for school funding is absolutely the cause. And if you ever want to fix the disparity problem, if you're really serious about it, and that's really your concern, you have to get to the point where you realize what the problem is, and that is local revenue. Jim and I went down to Baltimore, Maryland. Jim and I went down to Baltimore, Maryland. The Reason Foundation did an extensive study over the education inequities, as did many other organizations. And they looked at 76, and now this is a group out of California. They were astounded at what they saw because they realized that SB 76, removing the school property tax as a way to fund education, is absolutely the first necessary step to really truly fix the education inequities that we have today. Does it solve it in one fell swoop? No. There is no silver bullet. But what SB 76 does is it freezes those inequities. It does not lock it in, as you just heard, but it does freeze it. Now the legislature can take a look at this and actually come up with a funding formula, possibly on the state side, to effectively counteract this, and they can actually accomplish that goal. Whereas if we reject 76 and stay with status quo, you will, I guarantee you, after 100 years of trying this with funding formulas, you will never, ever address the inequity problem.
My name is Bob Kisler. I'm from Pomerton, Pennsylvania. Brief comment, and I have a question for Senator Scavell. I'm one of those road warriors that Senator Arlo talked about. I traveled all over the state with Steve Traynor, Byron Schnell over there, my wife Janice, Dean Klopp, John Donchez, Marty Moser, a host of people here. We hear some legislators say it's not a problem in our district. I will tell you it is. Ask ex-Senator Rob Peplitz, and you can talk to Senator McGarrigle. We're going door to door in his district now, and 90% of the people say it's a huge problem. He better change his tune or he's going to be out of a job. All right? So as much as Senator Argo expressed that you need to call everybody across the state, I would ask our legislators, you better tell your peers, we're a force to be reckoned with. We're more powerful than lobbyists. We can... Yeah. We will go to your district if you do not support this bill. All right. My second thing is, I don't think Ron got a chance to talk to this tonight because he had a shorter presentation, but Pennsylvania has, I think it's the second leading state for out-migration. We have more out-migration than in-migration, and guess what the number one reason cited is? Property tax. So the problem of age that was brought up before causing this problem. It's already here. Property tax is killing the state. People are leaving. People have been knocking the door. I had an 83-year-old woman crying on my shoulder when she realized what I was there for. Please help, she said. Okay. So my question, on the referendum in your proposed bill that you've written, so as I understand the exclusion, it would be 100% reduction, but not elimination.
It's 1.52. It's 100. You could 100%.
Right.
1.52 of the PIT addresses it on all homesteads. We did the math.
So
it eliminates it on the. We'll have enough money to fund every school district for their homestead.
So that leads to my second, maybe a little bit more difficult question.
Okay.
The money raised by that 1.25% PIT, how is that going to get pushed out to the school
We know
districts?
exactly we know what all the homesteads are where people have already applied. Someone said it was about 30%. I forget that number, but that's not accurate. Because why would you not apply for your homestead? We know exactly how many there are at the state level. We know what that tax number is because we have that homestead information because of the gaming revenue that comes off each bill. So we know all that information.
So this will be pushed out by the state and not, say, like the local school boards?
No, we will refund. It's like a refund on their, just like right today. If you get your school bill, there's a $300 or whatever that number is right now. Well, alongside will be the state dollars to eliminate it, basically, and it's a wash.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Matthew Matsinko. I live in Moore Township with my wife. First thing I would like to say is that I think this panel has been great. The senators, especially for pushing this through, have been great. And I think they deserve a round of applause for being in the public. And I really do appreciate that. And the one thing in closing I'd like to say is that, you know, me and my wife, we worked all our years, we've had successful careers. Unfortunately, we tried, but we did not have any children. All these years we've been paying property tax. And now that we're retired, we're still, and it goes up and up and up. We're trying to live on fixed income like a lot of seniors, and the property tax is unfair. So I appreciate you guys pushing that, and thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Hi, John Dodge, Emmaus area. The question, because I was outside most of the time, didn't really hear what was going on in here, but people came outside and were asking questions. And one of the things was from a lot of these people is that, so what they're talking about is we're going to be voting on 76 elimination in November.
No.
And I was saying, no. So there's...
Let me take a stab at it.
Please do, because there's mass confusion going on with that.
I was pleased to hear the realtors were going to be doing TV ads. I know many of the representatives and senators are sending out e-newsletters to try to explain it. We're changing 5 words in the Constitution. What it would do is, we believe, make it easier to pass something like 76 in the future, but the 3 main changes are, right now it says you can only go up to 50%. We take it all the way to 100% because we talk a lot about it here about it. People don't trust 50%. They want to go all the way. That's the one main change. The second, the law now says it has to be the average. So in my school district in Tamaqua, everybody gets $148. That's the average. This, again, we wipe that word out. That gets everybody to 100%. The third is, the law right now says it has to be uniform. You have to treat businesses, vacation homes, and households all the same. We take that word out of it, we could send a heck of a lot more help to the individual homeowner. So, if that passes, then we have to do our job in the House and Senate and pass the legislation. If it doesn't pass, then we're stuck. because then none of these bills that we're talking about have a prayer. That's the short version, but I would definitely keep watching our websites and our emails.
Okay, so then 76, as far as I know, is still in committee.
It could, and 76, we haven't given up on 76, but right now we're a couple of votes short. So we think that if this passes in the fall, that really helps us pass something that looks an awful lot like 76 in the future.
Okay.
We're not giving up on 76.
And I would say, don't even go for it. 76 is the only way. Otherwise, these people will still be able to raise your taxes.
Sir, that's why, I'm going to be very honest with you. We tried to do partial years ago, and partial doesn't work, because for the same reason you're saying, this takes it off of residential property. It's not a 50%, not a 20%. It eliminates it on school property taxes on owner-occupied residential. Why would you tell them not to vote for it?
76.
Well, we support 76 too. However, this is we're not going to get it done. This is a parallel vote, sir. Think about it, because we need you to vote for it. It's important.
Wait, can I get to the people, because I know some of them waited a long time to speak.
Just a quick question. My first one was going to be, when does 76 come up for a vote? But it looks like you're saying it won't be till after the November election to see if it's constitutional change.
We could bring 76 up at any time, but we don't want to put it up and lose again. So we've been doing a lot of counting. Lisa's been working the Democrats, Mario and I have been working the Republicans, and we're not where we want to be. Mario was right. Some of the people that voted for 76 with us last time, they got beat up back in their district by some of the organized groups, okay? And so that's why we're doing this.
Okay, my second quick question would be, if it comes up and passes, will the governor sign it?
The bill, okay, the question in the fall, it's already been passed by the House and Senate. If the people vote for it, the governor doesn't get a say, okay? Yeah, and constitutional amendments are done without the governor.
Because I know he was looking at those two tax sources as maybe other funding. Okay, thank you.
And the governor has been, he has a working group together of individuals, because he knows that something needs to be done on property taxes. And I've seen him and witnessed him in group forums actually talk about how he felt this would be good for Pennsylvania and even in the business community to do something about property taxes. He thinks we would take more business. So, anybody else want to say anything? I think I cut you off.
I promise something real good. I was told you guys, I've listened all night long. One question I have not heard is school districts are holding over $400 million of reserve funds while they're raising our taxes. Can you do something about that?
I can tell you what part of that is. And you heard when the person said she was getting that, they were getting that increase. Pension obligations in the last Rendell year were $415 million in our budget. It's going to hit $5 billion. We're at $3 billion now, sir. So these school districts know that it's coming. I know one school district back in that last Rendell year was paying about $4 million. They're going to be paying $35 million in a few years. So the pension obligations are strangling the schools. And if they do have some type of reserve, they're trying to hold it so that you don't get that huge spike. Now there's some out there might be some bad characters out there, but I say for many of them, that's the reason. And by the way, there's nobody up here that doesn't care about kids and a quality education. Just want you all to know that. We all care about our children.
There's also a case before the Pennsylvania State Supreme Court on that very issue. Thank you.
It was asked by the gentleman in the front, what is my personal opinion on the constitutional amendment. So I'm going to do my best to explain how I view this. First and foremost, I believe SB 76 is the ultimate solution. Let me just get that out of the way right up front. Now, I view the constitutional amendment a couple different ways. Both Jim and myself, as well as Mr. Sears, who spoke earlier in the Q&A, we have been looking at this extensively, and we don't have time, and I don't really want to list my concerns. We are working through them with any, our concerns with any legislation that would fund this. But it's important to understand that if you vote this up in November, the day after the election, your school property taxes will not be eliminated. Just know that going in. There would need to be a piece of legislation to fund the elimination of your school property taxes for your primary residences. Now, as I mentioned earlier, I do have some concerns that the legislation that comes after this, probably Mario's excluded from this, maybe try to be a reduction bill or something along those lines. So there is a bit of a danger to voting yes. However, there's a bigger danger, in my opinion, of voting no. And the reason I say that, and again, I look at this, I'm as skeptical as anybody in this audience. If you vote no, in my opinion, I believe that the opposition legislators will use that against not only a homestead version of school property tax elimination, but also against SB 76, because I've been around Harrisburg for a long time. I'm not a legislator, but I've been working on this issue for a long time. And I can tell you what's going to happen is if you as voters say no, they're going to say, look, we told you so. The voters had their say, and they rejected property tax elimination, school property tax elimination, so we're not going to do it. And you're going to set back not only any type of homestead version, but you're also going to, in my opinion, hurt 76 as well. However, if you vote it up, you can now use that to kind of beat your legislators over the head with it. Look, you gave us the option. We said we want school property tax elimination. Now give it to us. So that's the positive.
That was a perfect answer. All right, so look, we tape this stuff, and the senators that weren't here get copies of this, so everything that was said is videotaped, on record. Anybody in my district, Norville, Senator Scabello, you want a question that you have maybe when you go home tonight, it happens to me all the time, I go to bed, oh my gosh, I should have thought of this. Call me. I'm available, any of us are, and even if it's about some other issue. I'm your senator here, and I'm going to be available to you. And that's why I opened this up for you today. So thank you for coming out.
Mine are so basic. I will start the definition. What is equality